Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. De Bethune is a famed brand on the basis of engineering, design, innovation, and rarity, particularly on that last count. It is not uncommon for De Bethune models to be made in quantities of single digits or double digits over periods of years or even decades. But to have something that is one of one is special even by De Bethune standards, and to own something never intended for the public, scarcer still. This is the DB25 Power Reserve Prototype, developed with considerable variance relative to the ultimate production version during the mid-2000s planning and development of the original DB25. So I have one of the production version DB25s present, and you could see a number of changes. Look at the power reserve up at 12 o'clock. Note that we have an inversion. Hands are polished, dial fired blue, whereas here we have one of the rare bare titanium De Bethune dials in natural titanium silver with the hands fired blue. See the inversion here? And then take a look at how the power reserve is portrayed. We have a mirror polished disc, and then inside the power reserve changes from silver to blue as it's wound. Here we have a combination of white and red, and the detail changes go on and on and on, with the name of the company and the minute scale outboard being metallized additions, whereas here you could see that they were engraved and lacquered. There are a lot of differences, more on the case back, but we'll get to that in a moment. This watch is 44 millimeters in diameter. It's slim at 11.4 millimeters thick in rose gold, from lug tip to lug tip, 52.5 millimeters, with a 24 millimeter spacing between the lugs. And when it goes on the wrist, it's broad and flat. So it actually wears pretty compact. You can wear this under a tight dress sleeve easily. Though I will say my wrist at 16 centimeters circumference is probably the smallest wrist that can wear this watch, just because it is so broad from lug to lug. The timepiece has a satisfying weight to it. If you don't like De Bethune's blackened zirconium and titanium watches, then this is a traditionally luxurious watch. And one quality of the prototype that absolutely carried over to the production models is that the DB25 was conceived at a time when De Bethune was moving towards relentlessly avant-garde design, not just watchmaking and engineering. So for some people, their first De Bethune would be something that's more of a bridge from a conventional luxury brand like the Holy Trinity, Lange, or a conservative independent like Kari Voutilainen or F.P. Journe. And for this newcomer to the brand, or more conservative buyer, we have a solid dial, we have a round case, we have fixed lugs. It doesn't come across as a spaceship for the wrist. And whether this is the beginning of your De Bethune journey or just the one that you own to have the brand represented in your collection, it is a fantastic way to get into De Bethune watchmaking without going overboard on the design. Now, because we do move these watches from global office to global office, and this has just been to the factory for a service, you note here we have a full custom De Bethune by Jean Rousseau strap on this watch, and it is fake. But it is also an official factory strap custom made by the firm that makes the OEM straps for De Bethune and for F.P. Journe. So I'd actually recommend, if you buy this watch, this is a credibly handcrafted strap in something that is indistinguishable from alligator. It will last forever. It will never tear, discolor. It will never be soiled in a way you can't just wipe off and clean. I would actually encourage you to keep this strap. We will fit it to alligator if you want, but I think this is better. Now, taking a look at the buckle at De Bethune, even then, it was obvious that you should have a buckle to match the case design. So for the more conventional DB25, we have a conventional buckle. The lugs are fixed, though they are somewhat skeletonized to give them an open, airy, flying buttress-like design, as though they are from the flank of a Gothic cathedral. We have little ogival bullet tips, a design element that is continuous across almost all de Bethune models since the original DB1 chronograph of 2002. The case is articulated in profile with several character lines brought by the case back and the bezel, and then we have a crown that is unbranded as an homage to historical vintage pieces, but then it has a combination of drilling and knurling on its side, so it's distinctive in appearance and in feel. The bezel is polished, and then we get to that dial where you can see the hands and the dial have been fully inverted. We have silver on blue. Here we have blue on silver. Now what didn't change, the use of fired blue titanium hours, which pops a little bit more against the silver dial. You can also see that the watch features a bit more coarseness to the track for the minutes. Look at how this is brushed all the way around. And then you look here, and you can see it's more of a media blast underneath the metallization. Turning it over, if you have any doubt that this is a prototype, reservations addressed in full. It is labeled prototype. Now, there's nothing that is substantively below the finishing quality of a production model here, but we do have two oddities. The first is that the production balance, which you can see right here, is not represented. This is, by appearance, possibly an early build of the de Bethune 2016 model balance. And you can see that the narrow rim featuring relatively small diameter rose gold masses is unlike anything ever put into production on a de Bethune DB25, although it does bear some resemblances to the 2016 balance that came many years later. What you can also see is that the hairspring is a conventional flat hairspring, not the company's unusual patented double curve. And I think that it's probably a matter of testing these two elements in tandem deliberately rather than any kind of oversight or short shrift that is responsible for that combination of an odd balance and an odd hairspring. You can also see that in terms of architecture, they are largely the same. So you've got the same automatic winding, 6-day power reserve with power reserve indicator. You've got a 4 Hertz beat rate. You've got twin barrels to ensure that the torque curve is nice and flat for those days of operation. You can see that the watch actually uses a lever-based automatic winding system, and we have Denis Flageolet's patented shock-protected winding system. So in order to get a really efficient winder, the lever arm of the rotor has been extended as far as possible, so it has a huge polar moment or turning force. The problem is, when you make it that long, you want it to rotate, but you don't want it to move in torsion. So what they do at de Bethune, what Denis did, is patent a system with 4 cantilever springs to keep the center planted to prevent it from flexing in ways that are unnatural and damaging. And then, because it was expected that the fired blue arm of the wheel might come in contact with those springs, each one features 3 slider jewels to minimize friction. So that's what those are for. We also have the company's patented triple parachute shock protection, where you have 2 flanking steel springs and then Inca block over the balance staff. It's there for the sake of durability, yes, to avoid damage to the balance staff pivot, but also chronometry, as it helps to keep the balance staff pivot centered in its jewel cup. You can also see snailing as well as media blast on the bridges. There is beveling on the edge of the triple parachute, which is satinated on its top, and the screw heads have all been mirror finished with media blast on the base plate, and then it's all 30 meters water resistant. So you could see, particularly in detail, when I go back and forth, just how different those balance and hairspring structures really are. But in terms of material quality and finish, there's really no distinction. You're not getting a lesser de Bethune just because you got the prototype. All of the parts here would have been finished conventionally, as for the most part, the finisseur who created these parts would not have known they were going into a prototype that would have come off the regular production line. A really cool opportunity to own something absolutely unique, as de Bethune factory prototypes are rarely sold to the public. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. And just because I realize you may wish to see how the power reserve indicator works, I'm going to wind manually for a little bit, and you can see in the aggregate all of those terms turns are diminishing the polish and increasing the polish and fired blue element of the power reserve indicator.